Well, the hidden wealth of some of the world's most prominent leaders, politicians and celebrities has been revealed by an unprecedented leak of millions of documents that appear to show some of the ways in which the rich exploit secretive offshore tax regimes. Dubbed the Panama Files, the 11 million documents were leaked from a Panamanian law firm called Mossack Fonseca. They show allegedly, I haven't seen them, I'm sure they do, how the company itself, the law firm, has helped clients launder money, dodge sanctions and evade tax. The company says it has operated beyond reproach for 40 years and has never been charged with criminal wrongdoing. Some of the things said to be contained in these papers are the names of 12 national leaders among 143 politicians, their families and associates from around the world known to be using or have been using offshore tax havens. National leaders with offshore wealth, including the Pakistani Prime Minister, the President of Ukraine, and the son of Egypt's former President, Allah Mubarak. Lots and lots and lots of interesting things in there. We've heard in the news about Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson, the Icelandic president, and his wife, who bought an offshore company in 2007, an interest he didn't declare when entering Parliament in 2009, and sold his 50% stake to his wife for 70p 8 months later. So all of this is coming out. And it's been on the news pretty much constantly all day today. When I say the news, I should of course say state media, because that's what we have in Britain. State media. Channel 4, ITV, Sky News and the BBC are state media, right? RT reporters and presenters, that's Russia Today, were bemused to notice that Russian President Vladimir Putin's name came up time and time again in the Western media, even though Putin isn't specifically mentioned in the documents. Right? Here's the RT boys, sounding kind of bemused at this. Pretty good report from them. Have a listen.
William, the Panama Papers, as they're known, they're commonly now become known as the WikiLeaks of the mega rich. That's what I've seen in some headlines, revealing alleged money stashes. And I'm just looking at some of the list here: state leaders, sports stars, business people here from around the globe. But it seems that for many media outlets, the leaks start and finish with one man.
Well, yeah, I mean, that man is Vladimir Putin, it would appear. He's certainly the centre of attention. I mean, you've got his picture everywhere on newspaper articles and also web links all over Facebook and stuff like that, alongside the headlines as well. Obviously, this all started from the website of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which broke the news. And right after the main headline, you have this offshore network tied to Putin.
So you have that in the headlines, but in the actual documents, there's no sign of Vladimir Putin's name.
Well, no, I mean, the documents itself, the way that they're organised is you have the main group, which consists of political figures who were directly associated, implicated in the leak. So these include the Argentinian President Mauricio Macri, Ukraine's Petro Poroshenko, and also the Prime Minister of Iceland and the King of Saudi Arabia. And then the second group is where you have people who or political figures who are associated with the leak by their affiliates. So in this case we have family members and friends. And so this is where we find Putin. He's in here. So yeah, his name isn't directly mentioned in it. Instead it's his associates.
Yeah, the papers have been obsessed by Putin, as have the television news channels. Sky recorded a little feature to explain tax havens at Sky News. It ran all afternoon. I'll give you a laugh. It started with the line, tax havens. What are they? And it then moved on to, well, imagine you're a Russian oligarch with billions and you want to hide some of that money. I'm not making that up. Anybody can find that. It'll be on Sky News' YouTube channel now. Don't imagine that you're a wealthy Englishman whose children go to private schools. No, just mention Russian oligarchs. And speaking of bad behaviour by the mainstream television news channels today, the BBC has also been running a 3-minute report all day on BBC News 24 about these leaks. I've got it here. In it, they mention only Icelandic President Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson, and also associates of Vladimir Putin. That is all they mention. I'm going to play it for you. Now, I've cut this down obviously for time purposes. The full clip is 3 minutes long. It's on the BBC News YouTube channel. I say that so that I cannot be accused of selectively editing the clip. I haven't done that. I've edited it in sequence to get rid of the fluff. They only mention Gunnlaugsson in Iceland and Putin. Here's the proof. This is the BBC today.
We've found links to 72 current or former heads of state, like the Icelandic Prime Minister Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson, who had a secret stake in an offshore company. The company held his wife's interests in Iceland's banks, worth millions of dollars. Nobody knew that when her husband was dealing with the Icelandic banks after their collapse, including the British demands for compensation, which he turned down. Because of the leak, we do now. He walked out when questioned by an Icelandic reporter. Mr. Gunnlaugsson is today facing calls for his resignation. He says he has not broken any rules and his wife didn't benefit financially from his decisions. But some of the deals in the files are extraordinary. We believe we have found $1 billion laundering operation in Russia. This man, cellist Sergei Roldugin, a close friend of President Putin, was officially the owner of 2 secretive companies which benefited from suspicious deals.
Yeah, and it goes on. It doesn't mention anybody else except the Icelandic Prime Minister, President, and Vladimir Putin. Now, Gearóid Ó Colmán, the Irish journalist who's been on this programme recently a couple of times, you see him on RT, on Press TV and on others. He posted a link to a story today, and ahead of the link, Gearóid wrote this, and I think it's very interesting. I'm quoting Gearóid Ó Colmán. Are you listening? Iceland is one of the only countries to have kicked out corrupt bankers after the financial crisis. By doing that, they managed to save their country from total ruin. The Israeli media have been campaigning against Iceland, calling them, wait for it, anti-Semitic for being Christians and singing Christian hymns. Now Iceland's leader appears all over the press as corrupt, and a revolution is underway in Iceland. There is foul play, methinks. And that was posted by Gearóid Ó Colmán today. And I think he's onto something. Because another friend of the programme's, Patrick Henningsen, and the gang at 21stCenturyWire.com, they've basically put out some stories today, and I think they're onto something, that this is much ado about nothing. That it's ultimately a smokescreen. Now, that's not to say that the behaviour of these people is not despicable and disgusting. It is, of course. But ultimately, this isn't going to touch David Cameron in Britain, despite the fact that the Independent newspaper today put out, and let's be honest, correctly put out the story that Cameron's father, Ian Cameron, who's dead now, not here to defend himself, ran an offshore fund that didn't pay any tax in Britain for over 30 years. And that the fund is still alive and kicking. This is not going to touch Cameron. And even if it did, you'd get Boris Johnson. What difference does it make? It's a way to smear Vladimir Putin again. It's a way to smear, if Gearóid Ó Colmán is right about the Icelandic president, it's a way to throw light away from what's happening in Syria and what's happening in Yemen. Because in recent weeks, we've seen an absolute outcry about the murder of innocent civilians in Yemen. This comes along and knocks everything off the headlines for a day and a half. And tomorrow, have no doubt about it, we'll hear this all day tomorrow and the day after. But it's not going to touch anybody. Ultimately, there'll be a lot of talk about how these things are not moral, but they are legal. There'll be a lot of calls to basically make them illegal. There'll be a lot of talk about, well, what's the point in complaining about this? These people are not breaking any known laws. Yes, it's morally wrong. It's repugnant. It's repugnant of David Cameron and George Osborne to starve people to death in this country while their friends don't pay any taxes in this country. It's repugnant, of course, but it's legal. You know, It's repugnant that they run down the NHS and they run down the post offices and they destroy the steel industry in order to sell it off to their friends in the city. It's repugnant, but at the moment, it's legal. They can do that. Why can they do that? Because every 5 years, fucking Muppets in this country turn up. 40% of the country to vote for them, to give them the mandate to fuck you in the arse. That's what they do. The language is appalling for a professional radio programme, and I do apologise for it. But I'm sick of fucking people whinging about it. The bastards! They are bastards, but you gave them the job. Don't give them the job. Don't turn up and vote in council elections. Don't vote in general elections. Don't pay council tax. Don't pay the BBC. And encourage others to join you. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, stop bitching about it. Because it ain't going to change. Not today or not tomorrow. Unless massive civil disobedience takes place in this country. Where you have the courage to say, I will not pay taxes to this regime so long as they are doing what they are doing themselves. It's as simple as that. What more will it take for people? This is Cameron 5 years ago. I was in Spain. I covered this programme. I was the only presenter at the time who had a go at Cameron and saw beyond the whole Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr's a comedian in England. 5 years ago, David Cameron had this to say about Jimmy Carr.
If you want to arrange your tax affairs so you support your pension, you plan effectively for your family, that is one thing, and that is acceptable. But frankly, some of these schemes where people are parking huge amounts of money offshore and taking loans back to just minimise their tax rates, it is not morally acceptable. And I put it like this. Think of all those people who work hard, who pay their taxes, and out of that post-tax income save up to go and see Jimmy Carr. He's taking that money and stuffing it into something where he doesn't have to pay taxes. That is not fair. That is not right.
Morally repugnant?
I pick my terms carefully, but it isn't morally right to do that.
Yeah, he wouldn't use the word repugnant because his father got away with it for 30 years. Stop voting for them. Turn your back on the system. Throughout literature, throughout films, throughout theatre, we've seen the theme. When you turn your back on the monster, you take away all the power that you gave it. Ignore it. But who's going to do that? 18 minutes past the hour. This is the Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.